like kitchen के लिए अलग.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining. Welcome to the second webinar from Net4Cities. So Net4Cities is a Horizon Europe project. It's a 4-year project called Real-Time Monitoring Networks and Transport Emissions for Tailored Zero Pollution Action Plans in European Cities. Just as an FYI, you will see the meeting is being recorded. And now I would like to jump in with just a few brief slides about Net4Cities before I pass over to our first speaker. So the overall aim of Net4Cities is to facilitate the realization of the EU Green Deal Zero Pollution Action Plan. And a lot of this work is focused around advancing air and noise pollution monitoring infrastructure so that we can help provide this evidence-based support for implementing effective transport policies. And the results will then be compiled in the Net4Cities studio with obviously the overall goal of improving air quality and mitigating noise pollution. If you're interested in learning a bit more about the project, our website is listed below, and you can also sign up for our newsletter. Just briefly, some of the funding context here is related to the Zero Pollution Action Plans and the goals that the EU has in this context. So there is a zero pollution vision for 2050 for air, water, and soil pollution to be reduced to levels that are no longer considered harmful to health and natural ecosystems. And one of the key targets that I wanted to highlight in the context of this webinar is the interim target for 2030, where they want to reduce the share of people chronically disturbed by transport noise by 30%. So we have 11 different partner cities in the project. They're shown here on this map. And in all of these cities, we are installing co-located noise and traffic monitoring equipment. And so that's a little bit the background of this webinar, also focused on noise. And the project is very much focused on transport locations. So we're looking at locations in the different cities related to traffic stations, so normal urban traffic, as well as port stations and airport stations. And so without further ado, I would now take the opportunity to introduce Sarah Weidenfeld, who is our first speaker. Sarah, if you maybe want to get your screen sharing started while I do the introduction. Sarah Weidenfeld is a psychologist by training and has been at the DLR since 2015. She's part of a small working group on noise effects research at the Institute of Aerospace Medicine in Cologne. Her research is on the effects of traffic noise on annoyance, sleep, and cardiovascular reactions. And they investigate the effect of traffic noise by conducting sleep studies in the field and laboratory studies, including sleep and hearing studies. So with that, I would like to pass over to Sarah for her presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Erica, for the introduction, and good morning to everyone. So first, I would like to apologize in case my voice will vanish since I have a little cold. But nevertheless, it's a pleasure to give you some insights into our research area, the noise effect research, and to give you a quick overview about the most important facts regarding the traffic noise impact on humans. First, I want to address the question, what is noise, especially environmental noise, and why is it important? And the second part deals with the health effects of traffic noise. Part C is about the specific role of annoyance and sleep disturbances. And within the last part, I want to talk about the disadvantages and advantages of modeled and measured noise data from our point of view. So let's start with the question, what is noise, especially environmental noise? Until 2020, noise has been defined as unwanted sounds. The definition addressed the perception of a sound as unwanted, unpleasant, disturbing, or annoying. Noise is a psychological construct since it develops due to an interaction between certain features of sound. The context it occurs, for example, those situations depicted by the figures, and the characteristics of the sound exposed person, for example, if the person likes rock music or not. Fink describes the definition according to Guski, mentioned above, as obsolete because he suggested that noise represents a purely subjective assessment of sounds and that noise is merely annoyance and neglects the harmful effects on health. He therefore advocates the following addition, namely, noise is unwanted and/or harmful sound. The definition of environmental noise differs between different organizations depending on the scopes based on their research area and guidelines. The European Environment Agency defines noise as unwanted or harmful sounds generated by human activities, such as industrial noise and transportation noise from road, rail, and air traffic. Whereas the World Health Organization focuses on noise generated by wind turbine and leisure activities, but also on noise by road, rail, and air traffic. Transportation systems, particularly road, rail, and air traffic, remain the dominant source throughout Europe. These sources are the primary focus of current policy frameworks and initiatives. The EEA continues to consider traffic noise a significant environmental problem, since at least 20% of the population are exposed to unhealthy traffic noise levels, and according to the WHO levels, even 30%. Why the EEA and the WHO refer to different proportion of the exposed population is answered by the next slide. The EEA refers to the Environmental Noise Directive noise reporting thresholds, whereas the WHO refers to recommendations regarding the potential harmful effects of noise levels. The figure shows the number of people in millions which are exposed to average day, evening, night noise levels above the END thresholds and the WHO recommendations. Since the WHO levels are lower for the different traffic noise sources, the number of people exposed to potentially harmful levels is higher, according to the WHO. And as you can see, road traffic is the dominant source of traffic noise, followed by railway, and at last position aircraft, which is due to the fact that aircraft noise is only a problem in the vicinity of airports where landing and takeoff noise occurs. The second figure shows the number of people exposed to potentially harmful night levels. And as you can see, it's an equal pattern like the figure above. The EEA stated that these numbers are exposed to increase due to future urban growth and increased mobility demand. Until now, the effect of noise on health is not completely understood, but the knowledge of the evidence base is still growing. Within the next slide, I'm presenting you the current status of a biological explanation approach. There's a growing evidence base for noise as a leading contributor to health impacts. In Europe, traffic noise is considered the second most important environmental cause of adverse health effects after particulate matter. Transportation noise can disturb communication, sleep, and activities like reading or recovery. Those disturbances can lead to annoyance reactions, and those annoyance reactions goes along with cognitive and emotional reactions. For example, feeling stressed or feeling anger about the noise or having negative attitudes towards the noise source. And annoyance can lead to a fight or flight reaction of the body, and that can lead to an activation of the autonomous nervous system and the endocrine system, and that can cause a release of stress hormones, an increase of heart rate and blood pressure. And that can lead to an inflammation and oxidative stress. And long-term inflammation processes can increase the risk factors to develop certain diseases. There is a huge evidence base that traffic noise can cause metabolic diseases, for example, diabetes or obesity. There's also evidence that it can lead to cardiovascular diseases like hypertension, stroke, and heart disease. But it can also lead to cognitive impairments. For example, there is evidence that it can lead to a delay in reading and hearing comprehension in school kids. And there is evidence that it can lead to mental diseases like depression or anxiety. As already mentioned, noise can lead to annoyance reactions and sleep disturbances. And these are two effects that play an important role, and these are the effects with the highest prevalence. In addition, it is assumed that they are part of the causal pathway from exposure to diseases. It is assumed, that it functions as a mediator, and nevertheless, the thresholds and the strength of these situations is still unclear. And therefore, annoyance and subjective sleep disturbance are the most important indicators to monitor the effect of noise and to derive noise protection concepts. The EEA published the current number of 70 million Europeans that experience long-term high annoyance, and 4.6 million of people suffer from severe sleep disturbance due to transportation noise. Annoyance is a multifaceted construct, and Guski developed a rule of thumb which explained 3 proportions that contribute to the development of annoyance. He stated that 1/3 can be explained by acoustical factors like energy-based metrics, for example, the sound pressure level, or number-based metrics, for example, the number above a certain threshold, also the maximum levels or the repose time between noise events. Another third can be explained by non-acoustical factors that contains variables that modify or co-determine responses to noise. That can be variables like the noise sensitivity of a person, or the person's attitudes towards the specific noise source, or fears or perceived fairness from the authorities. And there is also a last 1/3 that is still that contains the unknown factors until now. Annoyance can be measured by an internationally standardized question and response scale, the so-called ICBIN scale. There are two versions of the scale. The short version, which consists of a 5-point scale from extremely to not at all, or from not at all to extremely. And the long form, which contains to a 11-point scale from 0 to 10. Both questions can be used to measure long-term annoyance, referring, for example, to the last 12 months, or they can be adapted to short-term measurements that refers, for example, to the last night. So the term 12 months can be replaced by the term the last night. And both scales can be used to derive the percentage of highly annoyed people, which is used to monitor noise effects and is used for noise protection concepts. Similar to annoyance, there are 3 different contributors that play a role how strong noise can disturb sleep. There are different individual moderators. For example, the noise sensitivity of a person, the age of a person. There are also certain characteristics of the noise event itself. This could be also energy-based matrix, or the rise time, or the maximum sound pressure level. And there are situational moderators that can influence how strong noise can impact sleep. That could be the current sleep stage in which the person is, for example, light sleep or deep sleep. And that could be the prolonged sleep time. For example, it's easier to wake up due to a noise event within the second half of the night. Those factors can influence the physiological reactions, and they can cause arousals, they can cause awakenings. These are can be conscious or unconscious reactions. They can cause also sleep stage changes. These are all little reactions to noise events. And repeated disruptions due to many noise events can lead to a fragmentation of the sleep during the whole night, which can result in reduced sleep duration, a higher arousal and awakening frequency, or less time spent in deep sleep, which is important for our recovery. A chronic disturbance and can lead to, or during some the disturbance during the night can lead to, on the one hand, to short-term effects at the next day, for example, a decreased performance or an increased sleepiness at the next day, but it can also, due to chronic exposure, can also lead to the already mentioned long-term effects, and these are the effects on the increased risk to develop specific diseases. Sleep disturbances can be measured subjectively by questionnaire or objectively by the gold standard, the so-called polysomnography. By the polysomnography, we measure brain waves, muscle activity, eye activity, and heart activity. And with these data, we are able to identify awakenings, arousals, and sleep stage changes. And due to the combination of the electrophysiological data and the acoustic data, we are able to derive the so-called exposure response curves, which predict the possibility to wake up from a noise level at, for example, a certain maximum sound pressure level, like it is depicted at these figures. And thereby we are able to predict the awakening probability. And these exposure response curves are taken into account for night protection concepts. With the last part, I want to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of modeled and measured noise data from our point of view. There are deficiencies. The advantages are, for example, a possibility of large-scale and epidemiological studies. And we can reach a high degree of validity and representativeness of results with regard to annoyance and health-related outcomes due to long-term exposure. The advantages consists of deficiencies in precision of acoustic data, which is based on the exposure estimated for the external facade of a house or of a building. A second disadvantage is that the information on noise exposure of the population is probably underestimated, because the noise maps do not comprehensively cover all areas and streets. So harmful noise may be overlooked in areas where mapping is limited. The END only covers major road, rail, and airport infrastructures of more than 100,000 inhabitants inside urban areas, and only major roads and railways and airports with a certain number of movements or passages per year for outside urban areas. The advantages of measured data is that we have the possibility to measure the precise acoustic or the precise noise exposure at the sleeper's ears, and that we can measure acute reactions in response to single noise events. And we are able to measure short-term annoyance based on actual noise exposure at home. But there are also disadvantages. That is that we are only able to conduct small-scale measurements, and that we need a very high effort and cost for conduction analysis, since we need trained personnel. We also have the problem of potentially masking effects due to other noise sources, for example, due to another traffic noise source or something like neighborhood. Okay, and with that last slide, I want to thank you very much for your attention. And yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. It's a great introduction and understanding for motivation of why we should be concerned about noise. So if you can stop your screen sharing, then we can pass over to David Capdevila. So David is joining us from the City Council of Barcelona. Barcelona is one of the partner cities in the NEt4Cities project, and it is the only partner city that we have that has an existing extensive noise network. So we're very happy to welcome David here today to share some of their experience with that. So with a formal background in industrial electronics, David Capdevila joined the Barcelona City Council in 2018 as acting technician in the Department of Environmental Assessment and Management. He's currently working in the acoustic team, and his position's main focus is related to the noise monitoring network and its data management. So without further ado, I would pass over to you, David. The floor is yours.
Good morning. I've been requested to present Barcelona Noise Monitoring Network and the reason they were for implementing it. Uses in terms of advantages and disadvantages of a noise network relative to modeled noise. An overview of the applications inside GAIN, as well as lessons learned and possible improvements based on the experiences with the network. Allow me to explain some context information before. First, about the city. Barcelona is on the Mediterranean coast in the northeast of the Iberian Peninsula. It is the capital of Catalonia, one of the autonomous regions of the Spanish state, and the second most important city in Spain. The city extends towards the metropolitan area in a dense urban layout that makes it one of the most highly populated metropolises in Europe, in the European Union. The city lies between two deltas from the Besós River in the northeast and the Llobregat River in the southeast. It's surrounded by the Collserola mountain range, a huge green lung of 8,000 hectares. The city has nearly 5 kilometers of beaches with calm, safe, and warm waters, making it a unique place to enjoy the sea and nautical sports. Barcelona's geographical location and infrastructures make it a city well connected with the rest of the world. It has one of the most important ports in the Mediterranean and the busiest European passenger port, a high-speed rail link with the most important cities in the Iberian Peninsula to France and the rest of Europe, and an international airport, which handles over 50 million passengers per year, connecting it with major world capitals. As a Mediterranean society, we love to live outdoors, and we have a lot of live events on the public space. Another important characteristic it's high demographic density. As a result of this fact, we have a mixture of uses on the territory. So we can find industries or leisure activities on residential areas. And this can affect the relation between both parts. Barcelona is divided into 10 districts, each with its own character. This corresponds to the various geographical realities that we have come to make up the current city. Regarding the main sources, the main noise sources, if we analyze the number of vehicles that drive in Barcelona, we can focus our problem to some specific areas. We have the main access roads to the city that uses the people to commute, and then we have a big area in the central district of l'Eixample. It's something like the widening. That is a great hub used to move inside the city. So it has a high traffic volume and one of the highest rates of vehicle per square meter in Europe. This type of noise, as you can think, has a widespread impact on the whole city. If we analyze the ratio of population exposed to a noise level over 55 dB during the night period caused by traffic noise, you can see that we have a district with more than 50% of the people highly affected by the traffic noise source, that is l'Eixample. Although traffic is the main source of noise in Barcelona, by far the most annoying source is noise from nightlife. The major number of complaints are focused on the noise produced by the high concentration of people on the public space. It's true that this type of noise is focused on some leisure areas in the city, but they are growing every year. As we can see in the map, we have many busy nightlife areas. These areas are inside the city, so we have a problem of coexistence of uses. If you evaluate this map, we can see that in the area with more concentration of activities, only 12% of the population have been more than 55 dB during the night period. Another problem that we have is that in the pedestrian zone, areas with a very low environmental noise level, we have a concentration of people in the urban space. So the noise is higher in the night period than during the day. But the problem is that in peaceful street, where the noise levels are below the limit during the day, at 11 p.m. levels levels start to increase. And we obtain levels of the LAEQ near 75 dB. Some collection points have noise complaints, despite the electrification of the fleet and the incorporation of noise criteria in urban services as this. Apart from of these main sources, we receive many different kind of complaints that need a specific analysis. We have analyzed the noise from different types of commercial industrial activities. As you can see in the picture, we receive complaints from a shipyard, from an outdoor sport activity, skating, hockey, or training infrastructures. So, regarding the noise gathering, we have two main sources of noise data. The strategic noise map, which is updated every 5 years and gives us detailed information of the whole city, and the noise monitoring network that covers many noisy hotspots throughout the city. For the elaboration of the noise map, data from many sources are used, as well as spot and long-term noise measurements as control point to calibrate the model. In addition to the mandatory noise sources, we also calculate other useful ones, such as noise from nightlife, shopping street, parks, and some other. Finally, we calculate the exposed population to each range of noise for every daily period, day, evening, and night. This would be the flow of when we have to install some measurement point in the street. Usually, everything starts with a request. Could be a complaint, some requirement for the noise mapping, to evaluate action plans, or just for specific city noise studies. Then we install the device, the data is transferred, and we process for the final report. I think that's it. Okay. About the noise monitoring network. We have 22 class 1 sound level meters and 196 sensors. Here you can see some different characteristics of both of them. Why do we use those two kind of devices? We use the class 1 noise sound level meters for specific studies where we need a complex analysis, sound sources detection, spectral analysis, and so on. And studies produced because of citizen complaints, normative studies. So studies developed in a legal framework. Sound sensors, the basic idea on the sound sensors is to be used as a fixed measuring point that we don't need to measure so many indicators. We use it as a long-term evaluation point. For example, in the nightlife areas. This is the increasing of the devices in our network. It started in 2007 with sound level meters, and then on 2014 was incorporated the sound sensors. Those are the current sound level meters that we have, because some of them have been already retired. And this is a map of the sensors in the city. What we have monitored has been road traffic in more than 2,000 occasions, nightlife, some private activities, construction works, and some other things. On the road category, we have also the Superblocks project and the green corridors. That are streets that pass from standard traffic to a pedestrian zone. And this is the architecture of data that we are getting from the devices. There are like two ways. One is for TESBA mainly. The provider is getting the data from the device, and they are storing in a local server. Then we access to that server, and we took the raw data, and if we have audio data, we also move it to our storage platform. And on the other hand, the LAQ and some parameters like battery or coverage or that kind of things are sent to Centilo, and from Centilo to CTOS. Centilo is our platform to receive data from different sensors. The architecture on Centilo, you can see on the lower left part, everything starts with an input to Centilo from a weather station, sound sensors, or sound level meters, indicators. Then we also, there's a process that brings also the level, the equivalent level from the sound level meters, and everything is then moved to CTOS, that is a warehouse, data warehouse, and we have also data entry program, Rosmiman, that we use to store or to set the location and some more information of where the device is installed. And from there, we use a Shiny app to make the reports. Sorry. This is a view of our strategic noise map. This is a view of a Centilo web page. Here we can see the LAQ levels. This is live, so it's updated every minute. And then those are the reporting that we are doing. We are doing, depending of the application, monthly reports, quarterly reports, or annual reports. We also have active analysis in some evaluations, or special reports. But so why did Barcelona decide to implement a noise monitoring network? Well, one of the points is to respond to citizens' complaints. We have a detailed structure to solve normal complaints, but sometimes we need to do specific studies to give an answer to our citizen complaints. Then to monitor problematic or conflicting activities, to evaluate outdoor private activities or in the public space, and the same with nightlife areas. We work hand in hand with the different districts of our city to try to reduce the noise levels in nightlife areas. We have control noise boards where different departments share the knowledge and try to implement specific plans. So we need a tool to evaluate these actions. But this is an example of how a report will be with all the information that we get. This is the monthly report for nightlife areas mainly. And then it is shared on this web. And here the different districts can check how is performing each point in the network. Advantages. The advantages that we found on the network is, well, it's a way to overall monitoring the noise in all the city. It gives us information to update the noise map. So the noise map will be made by simulation, but with those devices, we can calibrate and validate the model by means of control points of the simulation, define specific sound sources like pedestrian areas, recreational, commercial areas, and give information of these parts of the city where the road traffic noise is not so important. Then, as we can link directly traffic and noise, we also can see if it's some error in the annual average daily traffic count. Then another advantage that we found is the long-term measurement rather than spot measurements. So we can get the real annual average in each point, and we can see the dynamics during different days and periods. And then we can analyze complex activities with photo detail. Then, insights. We can have an historical record, and be able to evaluate relevant urban changes, like mobility changes, pedestrian areas, pavement changes, and evaluation of its effectiveness. Then the most important for us is accurate diagnostic and to evaluate our work. It's a way to check if the different actions and plans implemented are working or not, as well as the impact in surrounding areas, to know if an action should be modified. Then, compared to Class 1 sound level meters, sensors with equivalent accuracy are not linked to legal network in case of normative measurements. But on the other hand, the price is 25 to 30 of a sound level meter, and the preventive maintenance cost is like 50%. Then the specialized technical staff with experience now for a quick response to coverage and battery problems, vandalism, and any problem could happen. The data complexity, not only for the volume of data, but also as a powerful tool to find a powerful tool to calculate the operations. Now we are using R programming language and Shiny Web framework for developing reports as web applications. Both are open source. Then, with the knowledge we have now, it can be exportable. It can be an exportable model to other networks, like something regarding the climate change, some sensors temperature, monitoring the low emission zones, and to provide also open public access data, such as public information, based on the transparency policy. This will be the portal for the open data. Lessons we've learned. Well, now all the devices on the network are connected. All devices are publishing to an only platform that, by the way, is open source. It's Centilo. I showed you before. And then the maintenance cost for Class 1 sound level meter, it's we've seen that it's quite more expensive than for the sensors, and that we select the device depending upon the application. Then another thing is that we have the option to connect some of the devices to the municipal APs, and that has pros and cons. Pros is that we don't have to think on connection, on signal problems, but the cons is that we cannot move that sensor. So if it's something in that area that it's disturbing the noise that we want to measure, we cannot move it yet just 1 meter. Yeah, we have to remove the sensor and find a new location. Then improvements. As improvements now, we are on the way to get some sensors that include third of octave. Then we are trying to link tender for devices with the maintenance of those devices. We want to carry operating and quality alarms to our platform. Also in the future, we have a lot of the devices working with SIM card, and it would be interesting to move to eSIM and improve the maintenance to reduce their cost. Maybe with a remote verification system. I don't know if electrical or acoustic or both. And that's it.
Great. Thank you very much for that really interesting presentation. So we have about 10 minutes of time left for questions. There's already one question in the chat. I think maybe it's already partially been answered, but in case not, the question was for you, David. The question was, is the Centillo network open where one can visualize and download the noise data, including the Shiny apps and other tools you showed?
Well, not the Shiny apps, but the raw data, yes, you can download it from there. So on Centillo, it's a public web, and you have the data of last 4 days for each sensor. But then we have the open data portal where you can download all the data, raw data also, and you can download it from there. We provide it every, I think it's, I'm not sure, but every 2 months, I don't know, something like that.
Mm-hmm. So Sarah also wrote a question in the chat for you. Where do you place the sound level meters, and how do you make sure that they won't be taken away by someone?
Well, the sound level meters we use, yeah, I don't know how to say in English, but yeah, they are fixed. They are fixed with
anti-theft or something.
Yeah, anti-theft. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Something like that. So similar to the ones for the bytes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. There was another question. Do you have any traceability of your sound sensors or sound level meters, or do you need it?
Again, sorry?
The question was, do you have any traceability of your sound sensors or sound level meters, and do you need this?
Traceability, meaning?
Maybe calibration.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, yes, of course. Yeah, the sound level meters, they have every year we have to uninstall them and send them to a lab for the annual verification, and yeah, and they have a preventive maintenance as well. Yes.
Oh, good. I would actually have a question for you, Sarah. Can you talk a little bit more about the perception aspect? I was just curious because obviously, well, you had showed that airport noise, basically because it's location specific and there isn't as great a population exposed to it, is smaller, or there are less people affected. But given that perception is also part of the noise annoyance, I was wondering if it kind of ends up with a greater noise annoyance because of the intermittent nature and things like that. So I was kind of wondering if you could just talk a little bit more about the perception aspect.
You mean that people around airports are more annoyed, or what do you mean exactly?
Well, yeah, or just in general, because I feel like when you hear about noise pollution, you hear a lot more about like people being annoyed by airplane noise than you do by vehicle noise. And I was kind of wondering about if that's related to the intermittent nature or how that's connected to the perception aspect of it. Yeah.
Annoyance per se is a very complex construct, and it's not so easy to explain it. Annoyance can, as I mentioned already, can depend on different metrics. For example, it make a difference if you look at, for example, the number of events, or if you have a look on the matrix, for example, the LAEQ, and annoyance differs with the metric. So and we see that it also depends on the region where the people live. For example, at an airport located for example, in Germany at Frankfurt, the annoyance is lower than the annoyance at the airport at Hanover. So it depends on the region, and it depends on how the people feel treated by the authority. Fairness is a very important aspect, for example. And it also depends on factors like, as already mentioned, noise sensitivity, and how good or bad you can adapt to the noise source, and how you evaluate the noise source. For example, you are less annoyed by road traffic since you use your car on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks. So a couple more questions in the chat. So far, the presentations have been focused on the supply side, about how the noise pollution is produced. How about how it is perceived by the population, and also how different cultures accept the noise pollution? I'm guessing that's maybe more for you, Sarah, but I don't know. You could also weigh in, David, either of you.
Yeah, I'm not sure how the noise pollution is produced.
I think it's more about how it's perceived and if there are cultural differences in how people accept noise pollution.
Yeah. As I mentioned, it depends on the region, and also it depends on the different cultures. That is true.
There was a question, how is the sensor mounting height selected? I think that's for you, David.
We try to keep always the same height. It's around 4 meters. There are several normatives establishing the height and the distance from the facade, and we try to standardize if it's possible.
Okay, great. Another question, are there any systems or sensors that can collect noise data specific to the vehicles or cars in traffic in Barcelona?
Again?
The question was, are there any systems or sensors that can collect noise data specific to the vehicles or cars in traffic in Barcelona?
No, not really. Not really. But yes, we try to select the locations according to what we want to measure. So they are not just sensors for traffic, but we have locations where the main source mainly is traffic.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What do you do with the final report from the noise monitoring network? Do you have noise limit values for different activities? And do you take action in cases where noise exceeds those limit values?
Yeah, that's the idea. To take actions with the districts, or yeah, or how to say, maybe with the users of nightlife, leisure activities, to try to convince them to lower the volume, or yeah, we try to make some actions with the data that we get.
Okay, great. So we're basically to the end of the time here. I think we've also answered the questions in the chat. The recording will be posted. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is the second in a series of webinars coming from the Net4Cities project. So if you're interested in possible future webinars, which will be related to air and noise pollution, monitoring, policy, etc., please do consider signing up for our newsletter or following our LinkedIn page. And with that, I would like to thank both of our speakers again for their really interesting presentations and their participation, and also all of the people who came and attended the webinar. Thank you all and have a great day.
Thank you for the organization. Bye.
Bye.